Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. It's been a while since we've done a top 5 budget commanders list, so we're going to be doing that today. But first I want to kind of outline what is a budget commander to me, because a budget commander to me is not just a commander that you can build strong on a budget, it's a commander that you can build strong on a budget but also comfortably play against non-budget decks. Because what's the good if you build a deck but you're just going to have to upgrade it the second you play against someone who put a little bit more money into their deck? So we're going to be talking about commanders today that have so much synergy with cards that are already budget that you can't tell their budget when you're playing against them. Don't forget to click on that whatnot link in the description down below. You guys can pick up a free $15. Additionally, you guys can get 10% off all of your Tolarian library proxies whenever you use code DT4D. And last but not least, if you guys are enjoying these videos, if you would like, comment, and subscribe, I really do appreciate it. It helps the channel out. It's super free. And again, I know it's annoying to ask, but it does help, and I do appreciate all of you. Now, let's get into the first commander. Ketramos. This guy was absolutely insane. He's gone down in price, so we're going to talk about him on a budget. This is a 3 CMC commander that's 1 generic, 1 white, 1 black, and he's a legendary creature god. He has Menace, Lifelink, Indestructible, and Ketramos can't attack or block unless there are 7 or more cards in exile. Whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from graveyards and or the battlefield during your turn, you draw a card and lose 1 life. This is an incredibly powerful ability, and it does put card advantage in our command zone, which just helps with the budget strategy. All we have to do is include some budget removal spells and this guy's off to the races. It also wouldn't be that hard to include a blink strategy. We have Felidar Guardian, that's a 4 CMC creature that whenever Felidar Guardian enters the battlefield, you may exile another target permanent you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Then we can play some solid ETBs like Grey Merchant of Asphodel. This is a 5 CMC creature zombie that says when Grey Merchant of Asphodel enters the battlefield, opponents lose life equal to your devotion to black, and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. So not only do you gain a ton of life, so this helps offset all the life you're going to be losing from the card advantage, it's also a way to end out the game if you have enough black pips on the battlefield. Flicker Wisp would also be amazing in the blink strategy. When Flicker Wisp enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, basically the same as Felidar Guardian. So I think you can see how it'd be very easy to build a blink strategy on a budget that also just keeps our opponent's pieces off the board indefinitely. We're interacting with our opponents, getting rid of their broken cards while furthering our game plan, and you really never run out of removal in this deck because your commander sticks on the battlefield because of that indestructible, and then whenever you're casting removal spells, you're drawing into more removal spells. It can be very hard to play against, and honestly, you can very reliably keep the threats off the board, especially if you have a lot of game knowledge. When you're playing a deck that relies a lot on removal, game knowledge is going to be your best friend because you know what pieces you have to get rid of and you know what pieces you can just let set on the board. The next deck I want to talk about is Cloud X Soldier. Now, I think this guy has a glaring resemblance to Nahiri Forged in Fury. I think he's going to be one of, if not the best, living weapons decks. And I've already built a living weapons deck built around him that's non-budget, but I think we could very easily make it budget for all of you budget players out there. Cloud is a 5 CMC commander in Naya colors. He has haste. He says when Cloud enters the battlefield, attach up to 1 target equipment you control to it, and then whenever Cloud attacks, you draw a card for each equipped attacking creature you control. Then if Cloud has power 7 or greater, create 2 treasure tokens. Now, something people miss when we're talking about this is Cloud's going to draw you a card for each equipped creature. So this is actually a go wide equipment strategy. So if we include cards that have 4 Mirrodin, Living Weapon, or the new Job Select ability, this means you're casting equipment spells that instantly equip themselves to a creature. So you don't even have to worry about actually playing creatures. You can just play equipment in this deck. And then you can have some very powerful equipment that's honestly pretty budget, like Colossal Hammer that just makes Cloud massive. So it can be a very powerful Voltron strategy that turns into a very powerful go wide strategy, and the card advantage is absolutely insane. And I think this can all be built on a very, very slim budget and still be very powerful at the same time. So that's why Cloud's going to make this list. Moving on to number 3, we have Coram the Undertaker. And I've already built a budget deck of Coram, but I kind of limited myself to cards under $1. Again, that deck list is going to be in the description down below. And the reason I limited myself to cards under $1 is because Coram is just absolutely busted. But honestly, we could take another 20 bucks, buff that deck up, and we get to play a plethora of other cards that really bring him to the next level. Coram the Undertaker is a 4 CMC creature in Jund colors. He says Coram the Undertaker gets +X +0, where X is the greatest power among creature cards in all graveyards. He also says whenever Coram attacks, each player mills a card, and then during each of your turns, you may play a land and cast a spell from among cards in graveyards that were put there from libraries this turn. So not only is he consistent mill, but he also mills all of our opponents, and we can cast the cards he mills this way. He also does something very powerful and turns all of your Entomb effects into just straight up demonic tutor, right? Because now it instantly goes into the graveyard and you can cast it using Coram's ability. Not to mention, this guy's incredibly powerful on a budget. We get to play cards like Lord of Extinctions that is extremely budget. It's a 5 CMC creature that says this creature's powers and toughness is each equal to the number of cards in all graveyards. So it's not hard to commander damage out somebody with this guy either. And then on top of that, if we did build another version of this deck, I would get to put a little bit more expensive cards in it, like the Gitrog Ravenous Ride. Not an expensive card by any means, but I did exclude it from the previous deck because it didn't meet the requirements of being under $1. This is a 5 CMC creature that has Trample Haste. Whenever the Gitrog Ravenous Ride deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that saddled it this turn. If you do, draw X cards and then put up to X land cards from among the cards in your hand onto the battlefield tapped, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. So now we can saddle him up with a massive creature, sacrifice it, draw a ton of cards, right? This is amazing in Coram, but again, I couldn't include it because of the budget. Same with Doom Whisperer. This is a 5 CMC creature nightmare demon that has flying, and we can pay 2 life and surveil 2. In Coram, this does just feel like Grizzlebrand because you're just going to mill every single card until you find the card you need, and then you can cast that card. It's really broken, especially with the strategy I went with this guy. I took a little bit of a life gain route. It was like Jund life gain, and it actually worked, and it was pretty disgusting. Definitely check that deck list out. It is going to be listed in the description down below. Going on to my next deck, this is one of my favorite commanders of all time. It is Pako, Arcane Retriever, and Haldan, Avid Arcanist. Now, this is a partner commander, and I love these guys. Paco says, partner with Haldan, obviously, haste, whenever Pako Arcane Retriever attacks, exile the top card of each player's library and put a fetch counter on each of them. Put a 1/1 counter on Paco for each non-creature exiled this way. So this guy gets massive very quickly. It is not uncommon to put 3 counters on this guy per combat step, which again, he's already a 3/3, so that makes him a 6/6 out of the gate, and it's an attack trigger, which is pretty important and makes him a lot more scary. Haldan, Avid Arcanist says, you may play non-creature cards from exile with fetch counters on them if you exiled them, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color. That's the busted part. So now we get to draw essentially 4 cards a turn, 1 from us and 3 from our opponents. This is a perfect commander deck for problem solvers because 90% of this deck is cards that allow us to play additional lands like our Utopia Sprawl effects, and then the other half of the deck is cards that protect Paco and Haldan. So now all we have to do is sit behind, ramp a ton, protect our commanders, and one of 2 things are going to happen. We're either going to kill them with combat damage, with commander damage, right? Because Paco gets massive, or we're going to use their deck to beat them with. Now, some people do not like this, so this can be a little bit of a salty salty deck sometimes. But honestly, I have taken this deck into any play group and it's just smashed because at the end of the day, it is just ramp and counter spells. So for players that have a lot of knowledge, they can always get rid of the threats that they know they need to get rid of. They can protect Paco and Haldan, and then they can solve the problem of how they're going to win the game with their opponent's decks. This is going to be an amazing deck for anybody that likes to solve a problem while they're playing a Magic game, which is not going to be everybody, and I know that, but I just want to say it right up front. I'm definitely that player. I'm more so trying to solve a problem of how to win the game than playing Magic, which is weird to say, but I'm a brewer at heart, so maybe that makes sense. The number 1 spot is going to go to Will, Scion of Peace. This guy's absolutely busted, and he utilizes very budget cards. Like, the cards that you would want to put him are already pennies, so it makes sense. This is a 3 CMC commander, 1 generic, 1 white, 1 blue. He has vigilance, and then you can tap him, and spells you cast this turn that are white and blue cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. That ability is busted, especially when there's cards like Chaplain's Blessing that is just 1 white and says gain 5 life. Not a very good card, but a card that says 1 white and all of your spells cost 5 less to play this turn is absolutely broken, and that's what this guy is. Now, the most consistent consistent strategy I found with this guy is Approach to the Second Sun. I know, boo boo, but honestly, it's absolutely broken whenever you pair it with blue draw spells. Approach to the Second Sun is a 7 CMC card that says if Approach to the Second Sun was cast from your hand and you've casted another spell named Approach of the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach to the Second Sun into its owner's library 7th from the top and you gain 7 life. And then Finale of Revelation is, there's a lot of cards like this, but Finale of Revelations is my favorite. It costs X and 2 blue. You get to draw X cards, and if X is 10 or more, instead, shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw X cards, untap up to 5 lands, and you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Then you have to exile it. But what's going to happen here is we gain 6 life. That means we can cast Approach to the Second Sun for 1 white mana. Then we're going to shuffle it 7 from the top. Now we can pay 2 blue mana to draw 7 cards into our Approach of the Second Sun, and we've essentially just won the game for, let's say, 5 or 6 mana, depending on what life gain spell we casted. And some of these creatures are just able to gain us 7 life out of the gate, so sometimes you can win the game for only 4 mana. Now, I will say the bottleneck on this deck is colored mana, obviously, right? So you do want to play stuff that untaps your lands, and there's a lot of those. And honestly, I think building this deck again, we'd have a lot more options because this deck is really, really old. I say really, really old, but it's like old in the form of Magic years, right? Whenever we're getting this much sets, 1 year feels like a really old deck, right? Anyway, I think we could upgrade this guy a lot. He plays a lot of very unique cards, and there's a lot of just bombs you get to play that win you the game out of nowhere. With that being said, I will end the video here, guys. Let me know in the comments down below which one of these you want to flesh out. Sometimes if I see a lot of demand for 1 or 2 commanders, I'll flesh them both out, and don't forget to check the links in the description down below if you guys want to get a head start on building those budget decks. And again, you'll have a solid starting point because I've already got a deck list. With that being said, guys, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I'll see you guys in the next one.